All right.
You're not muted.
Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi.
I hear Mr. Tim. Looks like Member Gomez is with us, and I think I just saw Member Becerra. Yes.
Audio check, one is available and you can hear me, right?
Yeah, I was just going to do that. Thank you, Member Gomez. Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you,
And so
perfect.
just as a reminder, council members, please keep, and staff, please keep your mics muted until such time that you're ready to speak.
Mayor Jones just doing a mic check. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you
All
very well. Thank you.
Okay.
And I see we have Pastor Dane Davis with us and Captain John Wickham. This is good. We'll start in just a few minutes. Everyone is so quiet. All right, we're going to go ahead and begin. Good evening. Today is Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021. The time is 5 p.m. The special meeting of the following will come to order. The Victorville City Council and the same council also sitting as the Victorville Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency, the City as Housing Assets Successor, Joint Powers Financing Authority, and the Victorville Water District. Madam Clerk, will you kindly call the roll?
Councilmember Becerra,
Here.
Councilmember Gomez,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving,
Present.
Mayor Jones.
Here, thank you, Madam Clerk. We have a quorum. Ladies and gentlemen, Member Becerra is attending this evening's meeting from a remote location that has sometimes sketchy internet service. So her video feed is not going to be on this evening. All right, with that said, we're going to have our invocation led by Pastor Dane Davis, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance with Captain John Wickham. Pastor Davis, will you lead us in prayer?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Micah 6:8 says, God has showed you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. We struggle in government at times to have that perfect balance between justice and mercy, and God's rule and his kingdom balance those perfectly. So I'll pray for both tonight. Heavenly Father, I lift up to you our city council of this great city of Victorville. And Lord, I just pray that as they go into this special meeting tonight, Lord, that you'd help them to be alert and focused on the task at hand. Father, I'm sure some come tonight a bit tired physically, maybe emotionally, possibly spiritually. I don't know, but you know. But Lord, at the end of this day, I pray that you'd give them the strength, the stamina, the courage, Lord, the justice and mercy in their decision-making, Lord, to help the city of Victorville advance and do an even better job in the days to come than we've done in past days. Lord, we do thank you for all that you've done to guide us in the past, and we lean into you. We trust you to guide us with decisions for the days to come. Thank you, Lord, for our mayor. Lord, thank you for our mayor pro tem, each of our council members, each of our city workers, oh God, that all work together for the betterment of this city and our community. Be with them tonight, I pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Captain Wickham, will you lead us in the pledge to our great flag?
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, with that, Madam Clerk, will you kindly present the agenda and any revisions thereto?
Tonight's City Council meeting is being held virtually on Zoom due to safety concerns related to COVID-19 and to reduce exposure for our community members, city employees, and council members. Our virtual meetings are conducted in accordance with the Brown Act and special provisions enacted during the coronavirus pandemic, and will be held this way until further notice. We invite members of the public to participate in our meetings via Zoom. However, for those who do not wish to comment on issues, our meeting may be viewed on YouTube. For future council meetings, public comments may be submitted via email to the city clerk. Submissions must be received no later than 4 p.m. the day of our council meeting. Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are no revisions.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to conflict of interest declarations. Council members, do any of you have any legal conflicts to declare? Okay, seeing none, hearing none, we'll move on. Well, welcome everyone to tonight's meeting of the Victorville City Council. Your city council is interested in your ideas and opinions and furthermore endeavors to incorporate them into its deliberations. At the same time, the council must be able to carry out its business in an organized and efficient manner, free from material disruption. Therefore, this meeting will be administered in accordance with the council's established policies and procedures and Government Code Section 54957.9. Open meeting laws do not confer any privilege or protection for expression beyond that otherwise provided by law, nor do they permit council members to engage in dialogue during the public comment period. All testimony is to be directed solely to the council. Our new public comment procedure approved by the council on March 16, 2020 is now in effect. This procedure was adopted to make it easier and more convenient for all members of the public to address the council. Rather than having to wait for hours to speak, all public comment on agendized and/or non-agendized topics will take place during the comment period at the beginning of the meeting. Public comments will be no longer than 3 minutes per community member. When comments are invited, click the raise your hand feature located on the Zoom screen. Individuals will be unmuted, called on by name, then recognized by the presiding officer. Speakers are requested to comment as briefly as the subject permits. Individuals may speak to issues not posted on the agenda during the public comments section on the agenda, providing those issues are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city. The presiding officer may decrease the time allowed for public presentation depending on the number of persons wishing to be heard. The presiding officer may also take a poll of speakers for or against a particular issue and may ask that additional persons speak only if they have something new to add. Audience members may not disrupt, disturb, or otherwise impede the orderly conduct of this meeting, and those who do are subject to removal from the meeting pursuant to Penal Code 403. Your understanding and cooperation are appreciated. All right, with that said, we're going to open up the public comment period. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak?
Yes, we do. And I do want to announce, we have received phone calls and emails from citizens, and there were a total of 24 citizens wish to have a council member appointed, and 16 wish to have a special election. And those were all previously taken before tonight's meeting. And then with our speakers tonight, our first one is Maggie Martin.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Martin.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. I'm going to be brief. I'm just going to reiterate what I've said before. I'm very much in favor of an appointment due to the current newly reflected costs of a special election, $825,000. Plus, I don't think any taxpayers in Victorville want to do that. And the other thing is, in addition to being in favor of appointment, I'll say before and I'll say again, is it doesn't have to necessarily be the 2020 top vote getter, although that would be my personal preference. I'm very amenable to the idea of the council interviewing, for lack of better words, perhaps the top 3 to 5 vote getters. That's all I have, Madam Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Madam Clerk.
The next speaker is Romero Rodriguez.
Good evening, Mr. Rodriguez. Mr. Rodriguez, are you with us? Okay, we're going to move on and we'll come back to Mr. Rodriguez.
The next speaker is Valentin Godina.
Mr. Godina, welcome.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you for this special meeting. And I do not approve of this new procedure. This was only for your benefit, not for us, the people, the voters. But on to what we're here for. In 1988, the Green Tree expansion started with an estimated cost of $2.2 million. Now it has grown to $33 million, with the city of Victorville having to pay $1 million of its share for that. But we can't find enough money for a special election for us, the people, to vote on who sits on that chair. You, the city council, created this vacancy, and you, the city council, want to handpick who our representative is going to be. That is undemocratic, and that is a violation of what our Constitution stands for. Now, Mr. Ryan McEachran, who you wish to appoint, was denied a second term by the citizens of Victorville, and he was appointed in Fontana, and he was removed for misappropriation of funds there by the voters. He ran again here, and the people of Victorville denied him another chance to sit on the city council. He is not a runner-up. He is the first loser to that seat. We, the people, deserve the right to vote. Find the money to give us that right to vote. You find the money for everything else that is in your benefit, and you deny us the right to a better Victorville. You denied us the right to a road to the city library because it was too expensive, $100,000, but you have found $1 million for the Green Tree expansion, which benefits a few and those friends of yours and Mr. Ryan McEnroe. Our city streetlights, Amethyst and Palmdale, have a death attached to it, and that was the only reason that light was put up. The streetlights on La Mesa and Luna have a tragedy behind it, and that was the only reason why we, the voters, got lights put up. Stop denying us, the voters, the right to our tax dollars and to our representation. Does Ryan McEnroe even live in Victorville? Can you prove he lives in Victorville? I haven't seen anything that says he lives in Victorville. I know he's represented
Your time
Fontana.
is up.
Thank you, Mr. Godina. And to be very clear, no member of this council has expressed a desire to appoint or have elected one member over another, one candidate over another. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
The next speaker is Romero Rodriguez.
Welcome, Mr. Rodriguez. Are you with us?
Hello.
Yes,
Yes.
we can hear you.
While one candidate can have the support of their voters and other candidates, and that's how it should be, that's democracy. But then you have those that run under false pretenses and campaign promises and swear upon serving the people. And once in, their full agenda is to comply with the bureaucracy and the agreements of the city and of the people that work in the city, not the people that live in the city. They would do anything to prevent the voters from participating in council meetings and limiting their voice when given the opportunity. As we saw last week at the council meeting, not only limiting their time to speak, but to only 1 minute and cutting them off while they were speaking and exercising their constitutional right. We have asked for translation services for almost 6 years, and their response was for us to learn to speak American. And one brazen council member went as far as to state publicly on the microphone at the conference meeting that he preferred to pay for the Little League's light bill than provide translation services. And the cost of translation services is between $5,000 and $7,000 per year. But the city had no problem paying $10 million to get there for the SEC, so that none of them would be, none of them would go to jail or maybe have charges pressed against them. It was a settlement. An additional $9.6 million in the defense of Keith Metzler. And on top of that, $11 million in attorney fees. Wow, $1.5 million for a fine from La Junta, plus $2 million for repairs, all due for negligence from the city. And let's not forget the $4 million that Bar's Pet Food sued the city and won. And the city's response, there was ambiguous wording on the contract. No. Now, they want to force McEachran down our throats. He was council member for 8 years from 2008 to 2016. 8, 12, and in 16, he ran against Blanca Gomez and lost. The people decided they didn't want him in there. And then he ran again in 2020 and he lost again. The people decided they didn't want those people. They fired him, like the other gentleman said, from Fontana. And a lot of articles says that he's nothing but a man-child that is bored and wants to run to serve the city council. That's it. He's not a successful businessman. He just works for his dad, and the manager runs the company. All we see and hear and listen are those 14 words that have been being spat out by generation after generation by certain people. Now they dress up certain people to look like us, to talk like us, but it's the same 14 words that we've been hearing for generations. And enough is enough. Go to the elections and don't care about what you spend, because you spend $26,000 on catered lunches. Thank you very much. And that's my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Mr. Bortnowski, there were several references to monies and lawsuits and so forth, and it seems to my recollection that those are gross mischaracterizations. Can you clarify all of that for us, please, so that the record's clear?
Absolutely. There were numerous misstatements and misrepresentations there regarding lawsuits. If anybody wants to see the lawsuits, they can go and check those. They're public records. There were no fines. Nobody was going to jail. There was no criminal actions in connection with any of the SEC stuff. There were so many false statements in Mr. Ramirez's comments that we could prepare actually a written response if you'd like.
Certainly, please do. All right, thank you. Madam Clerk.
The next speaker is Miguel Soto Jr.
Welcome, Mr. Soto.
Good evening, Council. With very little time, it's very difficult to really be able to express and represent the city and the people in Victorville in terms of what they would like for their equipment or special election. It's clear that the majority of people would prefer a special election, and the concern is that it's very costly. Well, we found many ways to fix many costly projects or certain agenda items. Cost should not be an issue when it comes to voter suppression. Pro Tem Irving mentioned during this discussion of appointment and electing that she's very strong on tackling voter suppression. And I just wanted to echo that this very much does feel like a very small form of voter suppression. The people who are gonna elect or appoint this new council member are the exact same people who voted for the council member to be off. Whether you agree or not on what side is better for the city, it seems that's very fishy. And when they do these interviews or try to appoint a new council member, it's just very difficult to get a good representation of what the people want. They're gonna choose people who look, sound, and behave like them, not people who represent Victorville. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Soto. Mr. Bortnowski, just a quick question, just to make sure that the record is clear. So the law states that the council has 60 days to make a decision. One is either for a provisional appointment or a special election. So it would seem to me with those two options that the lawmakers have already contemplated whether an appointment suppresses the people's vote or not. Would that be correct?
There has been no decision by this council as to which direction it wants to go in. So there's been no suppression of voting at this point.
Thank you. And if the council were to do provisional appointment, does that equate to voter suppression as contemplated by the law?
No, not at all. It's a statutory option that is given to you under the government code that you are able to appoint. Keep in mind that the appointment would only be for the remainder of the vacant term. And if you went to a special election, that election would not occur until earliest November of next year, in which case that person would only be elected for a one-year term.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
The next speaker is Christian's iPhone.
Good evening.
Yes, I had to unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yep. You have to give us time to unmute.
Yes.
Hello. Good afternoon, Council. As far as the 27 people that were mentioned in the beginning that all wanted for an appointment to be held by the council, it's what I understood was read. I would like to know their names because, I mean, you know, it could have been 27 letters or 27 from the same person. You never know. So to me, I respect the people that are calling in and their perspective views more than 27 people that who knows where they came from. Number one. Number two, if we need to set up a GoFundMe to have a democratic election, then we got to do that. If the city needs some welfare from the people, then you know I'm willing to donate some money into it. But I don't want to hear the argument that there's no money for a special election. It's ridiculous and it's insulting. And number three, for me as a resident, I would like to voice out that there needs to be an election so that the people that live in Victorville, like myself, can be represented by somebody that the constituency supports, not by what the council members, and with all due respect, believe would be the best decision for me. But I think I'm old enough, and I think with my own head to be able to decide who should be on there. And if I want to vote for that person, then I'll vote. And if somebody outvotes me, then that's fine. But I don't believe that you can take that right from me, because if you do, then what you are doing is you're destroying my neighborhood and my city without my consent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk?
Deanne Hudgens.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and council members. I just have some comments about the election, or the filling the vacant seat, actually. How can someone who claims to be a responsible council member condone spending close to $1 million to conduct a special election when we just had an election a few months ago and the people did speak very loudly with a lot of the people of Victorville voting? Or how is it responsible to not fill the seat for a year and a half if there's not an appointment or special election called for? Councilmember Becerra's recommendation is responsible, is reasonable, and a fair process to fill the seat. Could it be that the person that the council members who are in favor of not appointing, could it be that they feel that their person would not be appointed? And if you had finished 4th in the recent election, would your opinion be the same? Not necessarily that the 4th person would be the chosen person, but Councilmember Becerra's recommendation that there would be to take the 5 people to interview, that's fair and reasonable. Also, I'm wondering if the people of Victorville need to pay attention to which council members have no concern about spending $1 million of the taxpayers' money on a frivolous expense. There are many places that $1 million could be spent wisely in our city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchins. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Ms.
The next is a phone number 858-756-8762.
Good evening, welcome.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Yes, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Noel Meza with Renova Properties, and I own an apartment building located on Hesperia Road, which is adjacent to a vacant lot, which I believe is currently owned by the city of Victorville. And it's my understanding that this vacant lot several years ago had a dry cleaner, I believe a New Way dry cleaner building on it. It's my understanding that this property was subsequently acquired by the city of Victorville, and then the building was demolished. I also found out that the city has contracted with an engineering firm called Nino and Moore, who has been doing some cleanup on this site for many years for contamination. Is the city aware of that, or the city council aware of that?
Please proceed, sir.
Pardon?
Please proceed.
Oh, well, I was asking a question.
We're not going to respond at this time, but if you would proceed, we would appreciate it.
Okay, well, the reason I'm calling is because I discovered that my 10-unit apartment building has contaminated soil as a result of this. And I did ask Mr. Bouquet, the city, several months ago if he could assist me with this matter. He requested copies of the environmental reports, 2 environmental reports that were sent to him. And he declined to assist. I specifically asked him if he could provide a health risk assessment for the benefit of the residents who live there to determine if it was a safe environment or a safe living environment, and he declined to do so. I also filed a claim with the city on the regular claim form, and that was denied. But my question is, how could the city just turn their back on a very critical situation? It appears that they've had just complete disregard for the safety and welfare for tenants and residents of a building that are adjacent to property that you own. And I can't believe the city would be so negligent and so rude and so careless about such a matter, especially if it could adversely affect city finances in the future or open a tremendous liability for the city. Hello?
Yes. Does that conclude your remarks, sir?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Deportnowski, there were, to the extent that you wish to comment, I think it would be helpful to answer the speaker's question.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Yes, we are aware of these claims. However, there is also a threat of litigation related to this, so I would recommend that there's no comment be made at this point from any council members.
Yes,
we are
thank you.
aware of these issues.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Deportnowski. Madam Clerk?
The next speaker is Karima.
Ms. Karima, are you with us?
Sorry, I pressed the wrong button.
That's all right. Welcome.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Wow. What a story beforehand. Our environment is everything. But to get back on the topic, I spoke to the ROV today, and they said they were unable to give an estimate of any potential cost for a special election. They would be able to give it maybe later after some other elections were found, but they were not able to verify any amount. And so I believe democracy is priceless. That's fine if we get the same results. That's perfect. If we get different results, that's what we should do too. We need to nip this controversy in the bud, and we need to unite people. Some are upset over a councilwoman who was ousted, and we need to try to come together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk.
The next speaker is Ashiko Newman.
Welcome, Ms. Newman.
Good morning, good evening, council. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come before you today. This is a very important matter for the city of Victorville. As it stands, we have an open seat, and in order to fill this vacancy, it is important that we just, it would be best for us to utilize an appointment in this process. We had a very high voter turnout in the city of Victorville. The people have spoken. By holding the special election, what we're doing, this is the highest epitome of voter suppression. Our people have already come out. They've already voted. They've already casted their ballots. The current council, they're going to use whoever the top 3, top 5, whoever they're going to consider those individuals for the appointed seat. It isn't that they're going to come out with Joe Blow out of the street to put somebody else in this seat. This is the voice of the people that they are considering. To hold this special election to cost the city this extra money on top of what they're already spending, it's absurd. It's absurd. Everybody wants to say, well, I'm going to put up my money if need be, but you only say that because you're not coming out of your pocket. Nobody's going to ask you for that money. But the city of Victorville, your taxpayer, your tax dollars, and mine, those are going to be the ones that are going to fund this. And for what? Only for one person to go through the special election, sit on the seat for a year, and then have to go back again to try to earn the seat again. It's ridiculous. It's a waste of time, and it's a waste of taxpayer dollars. That dollars that have already been, reallocated to somewhere else. It's not fair, and it's not right for us to expect this type of thing from this current council, and from me and from you. We've already spoken, so let our voices be heard. Let them not be suppressed. The people, let the people's voice be heard, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Newman. Madam Clerk.
Sylvia J.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening. I just want to say that I 100% agree with the speaker that just spoke. I don't think we should pay, I own a number of properties in the city of Victorville, and I don't feel that it's fair that my tax money, my property tax, sales tax, all that money is going to go to a special election when an election just took place, 4-5 months ago. It's fairly recent. I think, if the results are the same, then it just shows it was such a waste of taxpayer money. And I also trust the political balance of the current council that we have in place. We have two, at least to me, that seem more to be to the right, one in the middle and then one in the left. I trust the balance of the council for them to appoint somebody who will bring further balance to the council, and who again, we just went through an election. The city has spoken. I don't feel like we should pay another $135,000 or whatever that cost is going to be for a special election for someone who's just going to be seated. I think I heard that just maybe a year. I don't know if correct me if I'm wrong, but I just wanted to say that I trust the balance of the council, the political balance of the council, and I think we should just have you guys appoint someone. I do trust you guys to do it.
Thank you kindly, Madam Clerk.
Those are all the speakers.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With that said, the public comment period is now closed, and the chair brings the items back to the council. With that said, we're going to move to our first business in order, which is written communications, beginning with item number 1, discussion and possible action for filling the city council vacancy. All right, so we're going to embark once again on the first step toward determining how to fill the vacant seat that resulted from Rita Ramirez's removal from office on March 2nd, 2021. When this item was before us a few weeks ago, it was clear that there were strongly held, disparate views about how to fill the position. It is the chair's hope that we can come to consensus on what the most reasonable course of action is. The first determination to make is whether we wish to hold a special election or make a provisional appointment. If we are able to come to a decision tonight, then based on that determination, we will decide the immediate next step. With that, I'm going to briefly introduce this item. This is Member Becerra's requested item, and that's why it is before us again for discussion and possible action. And with that said, on Mr. DeBortnowski, I'm going to pass this to you. I know that you've prepared a staff report. If you could tee up this item for us.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Yes, you have the staff report hopefully before you that points out basically the government code requirement, which is government code section 36512. That basically indicates that when you have a vacancy on the council, you have 60 days within which to make a decision either to fill the vacancy by way of appointment. However, the rules and procedures for that are essentially up to you to determine. Or secondly, to go to a special election. If you decide to go to a special election, the first time you could get to a special election would be November 21 of this year, November of 2021. And that special election would indicate that whoever was elected would then hold office for the remainder of the term, namely 1 year, until the regular meeting on November 2022. There is, at the prior meeting, I think we discussed this on March 9th, there was no action taken. So on the 16th, you decided to on the subsequent meeting, you decided to re-agendize this since there was no vote, and you have the ability to once again discuss these options. There is sort of a third hybrid option that we've discovered since the last council meeting, and that would be, I do believe you could adopt an ordinance to require a special election this year if you wanted to do that. Previously, we had indicated that ordinances typically take 30 days to become effective, and your time within which to adopt an ordinance basically has run out. However, there is a government code section 36937, that indicates that while most ordinances are effective only 30 days after their adoption, ordinance relating to elections can in fact be deemed effective immediately. So depending on which way you decide to go, if you want to go special election, I think we have some time to put procedures in place to get that done. If you decide to do appointment, we also have some time to get procedures put in place to get that done. Bottom line is you have until the end of April to make a decision which way you want to go. If you make no decision, then essentially the seat will remain vacant, probably through the 2022 date. So with that, glad to answer any questions. And again, I think the discussion really boils down to, if you want to take one of those options, we'll figure out a way to get it done, but you have to decide which way you want to go. If you decide to do nothing, that can work as well. We just stay with a 4-person council for the remainder of the unexpired term.
Thank you, Mr. DeBortnowski. And before the chair invites technical questions for clarification as it relates to your staff report, Madam Clerk, will you please read the recommendation?
Any action is at the discretion of the City Council.
Thank you. So at this time, the chair opens to the council an opportunity to ask technical questions for clarification as it relates directly to the staff report. We'll begin with Member Gomez.
Yes, thank you. I do have a couple of questions in regards to the reporting of Andre DeBornowski.
Member Gomez, hold on one moment. And Madam Clerk, will you kindly stop the clock? We're getting a lot of feedback. It does look like everyone else's mics are muted, so it may be an issue with multiple devices on your end, Member Gomez. I just want you to know that. All right, please proceed, Madam Clerk. Will you start the clock again?
Yes, so I'm going to start again. I have several questions pertaining to the presentation. So my questions are threefold, and they're in regards to the appointment process, a special election, and a regular election in 2022. I would like to know what the time deadlines are for the appointment process, for the special election, and for the November 22 election. I would also like to know the cost of an appointment versus the cost of a special election versus the cost of November 2022 election.
Certainly. So in terms of time frame, I think that was your first question. You need to make a decision within 60 days after the vacancy. That time frame runs to the end of April, basically April 30th, as to whether or not you want to do a special election or an appointment. Basically, what the code requires is that if you're going to do the appointment, you essentially have to make the appointment prior to that date. And so you have essentially a 30-day or basically a 40-day window within which to go through some sort of appointment process. Again, the procedures for that are up to the council to determine how they want to do that should they decide to go the appointment route. The appointment route in terms of cost, we don't have an estimate of that. Basically, I believe it would be staff time, helping the council put together some form of committee depending on how you wanted to run the appointment process. With respect to the special election, what you'd have to do is make a decision prior to April 30th that you wanted to do a special election. You do that by adopting an ordinance, And again, I'd rely on Government Code 36937 to argue that that need not be a regular ordinance, i.e. requiring a 30-day effective date requirement. So I believe you could still do that up until the April 30th date. You probably have to have a regular meeting date. So I would say you'd have to do that your second meeting in April at the latest. With respect to the cost, we have estimates. I believe city staff has been able to determine that the estimated cost of a special election is now about $850,000. That's based on a special election that was being held in Rialto, which I believe cost Rialto around $700,000. They have a smaller number of voters, so I believe the Registrar of Voters has adjusted for the difference in population. In terms of timing, neither of those affects the regular election date, which is November, the next regular election date, which is November 2022. And with respect to that, I don't believe there's any estimates as to what that would cost at this point. That would just be the regular election. I believe it is a gubernatorial cycle. So that election will be held regardless of any of these issues.
And then my other question is, what changed between your decision to not state that we had ample time and now we actually have time for an appointment process, whereas you had stated vehemently that there was no time? What changed between then and now?
There is no difference with respect to the timing related to the appointment process. Again, the appointment process would need to be completed within the 60-day period. There is a little bit of a difference in the analysis with respect to if you wanted to go to a special election. Previously, we indicated that most ordinances require 30 days from the date of introduction to the date of effectiveness. And therefore, there were real concerns about whether or not you could adopt a ordinance in time to establish the requirement for a special election prior to the April 30th date. There is reliance now on a different government code section that seems to indicate that ordinances related to elections become effective immediately. That is untested. One of the other cities that I'm aware of actually tried to do this. What they did is they adopted an ordinance in reliance on that code section. And before they went through the process of going to a special election, they decided instead to go through the appointment process. So it's an untested process. I think there is at least statutory authority. All that would do would allow you to make this decision, again, a decision either to go to appointment or to special election prior to the end of April. And if you go the appointment process, obviously there are some steps that would be required to get you there. So I suspect you need to take these decisions either tonight and give direction one way or the other, or at the first meeting in April if you're going to try and beat the 60-day time frame.
Okay, and finally, you said you spoke with the ROV's office. Do we have any estimations on paper, or did you get something verbatim?
We did add to the agenda the written estimate for the Rialto, which is in writing and it's attached to your agenda item. With respect to the increased cost from the 700 for Rialto to the 845, I believe I didn't make that connection, but apparently staff has talked to the ROV's office, and they've provided that information based on their discussions with the Registrar of Voters.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Member Becerra? Yes, Member Becerra?
No, Madam Mayor, I have no questions. Just I cannot see us spending around $800,000 for a special election.
Thank
the
you.
voters spoke 3.5 months ago.
Okay, so we'll get to that when we have the
Go ahead.
comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Irving, do you have any technical questions for clarification?
I do. I understand that we are relying, in terms of the estimate, cost estimate for the special election, we are relying on a letter from the Register of Voters addressed to the City of Rialto, dated November the 24th, 2020, correct? And in that is that correct?
That's correct. That's the letter attached to the agenda.
Okay, and in that letter, they provide an estimate for an election that would occur in March of this year, 2021. Does anyone have a rough estimate or a guesstimate for an election that would occur in November? What I'm saying is this is relying on what occurred on November. The information is kind of is dated. It's for November 2020 24th, 2020, for an election to be held in March, where that would be a standalone election. There's a possibility that we could, that the Register of Voters could host more than one special election, and that would greatly reduce the cost. But right now, this is for an estimate for an election that would be held in 2021. Where I'm going with this is we're relying on a document and the information is speculative. And we're resting on this particular document that's outdated, unless there's some other information available. And I'm asking, is it available to us?
Council member, I was not in contact with the Registrar of Voters, and perhaps either Keith or one of his staff people can address that issue. My understanding is that the Registrar of Voters did an estimate based on a November 2021 election and used the Rialto figures as sort of a grounds to come up with that estimate. But again, I'd have to rely on staff who actually spoke with the Registrar of Voters.
Mr.
Okay.
Metzler, let's see if we can get an answer. Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Metzler, can you help us with that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. My understanding of the estimate that was given to Rialto, and we do believe it applies here because it was offered more so from the perspective of one community conducting an election throughout the county of San Bernardino without it being known whether or not there were others, other jurisdictions, whether they be cities, special districts, whether or not they intended to participate in a spring election. And so with that, we don't believe necessarily that the metrics change, because at the same time, again, with it not being known whether or not there are other jurisdictions actually going to conduct an election in November, in both cases, we're of the mind that the estimates are based upon one single entity conducting an election. And until it can really be known and confirmed by other jurisdictions actually participating in an election, whether it's spring or in the fall, this is the best information that we have available. And that's what's known to me. And that's how I understand it presented from the city clerk. And so I'll defer to her to state if there's anything I missed or anything that I mischaracterized.
No, that is correct.
Okay, I have one more question. Thank you. The other question that I have, if you could slowly, what government code will permit us to have a special emergency ordinance where we could hold a special election? What did you say?
Government Code 36937, and what that provides, that deals with the effective date of ordinances. And that indicates that most ordinances take effect 30 days after their final passage. However, an ordinance takes effect immediately if it is an ordinance, quote, related to an election. And there's no case law to determine what that means or what that refers to, and whether or not calling a special election would qualify within the terms of that government code provision. That's why I indicate one city I'm aware of tried to go down this road, was prepared to do that. And before this was tested in the courts or challenged as to whether or not that actually relates to having a special election like this, they went to the appointment process. So it was never, I'm going to say it was never challenged. It was never flushed out. We have done a sort of search of the state of California and have found no cities that have followed this procedure. Nevertheless, it's on the code. I think it might be defensible if you want to go down that route. To have an urgency ordinance, that requires 2/3 vote. The next section deals with the ability to have ordinances for preservation of health, safety, welfare. We don't fall into that category. So like I said, it's a little bit of an unknown, but I think it does give you at least the ability, if you should go to do the special election, to do something before the end of April. And I would recommend I'd recommend doing that at a regular meeting.
I understand.
Most require that.
Yes, sir. Does that particular government code dictate the time frame? Does it state that we can hold one sooner than the regular, the next cycle, which is in November? Or can we hold one earlier, like maybe the early part of summer? I can't look it up right now, so.
Those issues. What other cities have done, if they have provisions already on their books as to how to deal with vacancies, those cities can then hold elections based on what's on their books. We don't have that. We have to put something on the books right now through this ordinance. Perhaps at that point, we could maybe establish something to have an election slightly earlier, but that's unclear. It's a sort of uncharted territory we're in.
Right, but this government code is silent on dictating
You are
what
out of time.
date. Thank you.
That is correct.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just have a quick question, Mr. DeBornowski. With regard to Government Code 36937, you talked about there would be a 2/3 vote requirement. Is that 2/3 of the 4 remaining? I think it, or is it 2/3 of the original 5?
Well, again, the statute is vague and it's not clear. It does require 2/3 for urgency type ordinances, but I would certainly recommend that if you were to go down this road, you would adopt it with 2/3 of the entire council member, meaning 3 out of the 4 votes right now.
Okay. All right, that's all the questions that I have. And so before we move on to requesting a motion, I'm going to call on each council member, beginning with Member Becerra, as this was her requested item, to answer the following question. Shall we call for a special election or shall we make a provisional appointment? Please explain your position. We'll begin with Member Becerra.
Madam Mayor, I look for a provisional appointment. As I've stated, the voters did vote 4 months ago. You could say the ink isn't even dry on the paper. That I recall, I don't even think we've gotten our bill yet from the ROV for the cycle that we were just appointed. We were appointed December 3rd. That's about 3 months now, 3.5. I can only look at an appointment. So that is my view. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Becerra. Member Gomez?
Yes, would you mind asking a question again?
Yes, so shall the council make a decision for a special election or to make a provisional appointment? And please explain your position.
So I am one that would support a gubernatorial election, which is not in your option. And if I can continue to proceed, that would be the case. Can you hear me well?
There's a lot of feedback, Member Gomez. It's like a lot of echoing.
You're right, I do hear it too. Let me see. Okay, hopefully that helps. I believe that to provide a fair election, it would allow everyone who's aware of the next formal election, which is November 2022. That way, a special election would not cost the city of Victorville any dollars. We would not be doing any kind of appointments. We would definitely be waiting it out, allowing the next viable election to get the most majority of people to come out and actually vote, and it wouldn't cost us what we've been saying it costs us an arm and a leg.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
Yes, I am in favor of a special election. I feel that there is no cause for democracy. In the manner in which we ousted Councilperson Ramirez, I think that the people elected her, and I think that the people should elect her replacement. I feel that this does have an air or appearance of voter suppression, and I believe that what we're relying on, this is speculative, this information is outdated, and we don't have any more recent information to rely upon. And I would ask that the council support a special election. Also, I believe that we are talking about the next person in line. That data is outdated as well. The reason I say that because elections politics are fluid. If we host another contest and we measure vote volume, there's a strong possibility that the distribution of votes once the persons that were elected, when those candidates are removed from the pool, those distribution of votes will go to other persons. More importantly, if we study the trend, 2020, 2018, and 2016, the city of Victorville elected females, Hispanic females. My contention is that the distribution of votes, if we were going to continue with the trend, the probability suggests that those votes will be distributed in other ways. And so I think that to get the most recent data and get the real pulse of the people using representative democracy, an election is best in this instance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. All right, so the chair favors an appointment, and here's why. So we have, first and foremost, we have a lot of work ahead of us, and it's, in my view, important that we have a full complement of 5 council members serving the entire community. We did just have an election a little better than 4 months ago. The people did voice their preferences. We know who they are. There's 19 other candidates that did run and didn't make one of the seats, but they may well be interested as well. An appointment in no way could usurp the people's voice, because these other 19 candidates have been vetted by our community. Just a few months ago, we had greater than a 70% turnout. And it's clear by the information given to us that the cost of a special election would in fact exceed $800,000. We have no idea whether we have to make a decision based on the information that we have before us today. So there's no guarantee that we could piggyback on some other special election. So I do find that the data provided to us by the Registrar of Voters, even though it's dated November 2020 for a March election, one can only presume that, speaking of the information given to us, one can only presume that the cost of elections is going to rise. That has been the trend certainly over the course of time, and costs have risen dramatically over the last couple of years. So I find that number given to us by the Registrar of Voter, having extrapolated from the information provided for a March election, is well, it logically follows. This council is fully capable of making a difficult decision. This council just made a very difficult decision to remove one of its own based on the facts presented to it. So I have every confidence that this council, these 4 council members, are capable of doing a very robust and rigorous appointment process that avoids every appearance of impropriety and really gets to, it's really a golden opportunity to find out, who is really capable to sit in a seat and begin work immediately without having to spend a year really in training, which is very common when you're first appointed or first elected to a seat. And that seat again would only be for 1 year. So the big advantage of this, and I have said this before, is this is a golden opportunity to put someone on this council from the 19 other people that ran, put someone on the council, do an interview process and find out what is their knowledge, what do they know, what can they contribute to the city and to the team. It's one thing to run, we know in elections that sometimes people vote for your friendliness or the look on your face or where you're positioned on the ballot or your race or all those kind of things, and people get to make those decisions, and the will of the people was certainly heard back in November. But this is, again, it's a golden opportunity to find out if we can get someone on this council that is really competent and committed and has good strength of character. So I think it will allow us to dive in much more deeper as to a candidate's suitability for a position than a special election for a 1-year seat. So those are my thoughts. And with that, the chair is going to go ahead and invite a motion. And since this was Member Becerra's item, the chair will call on Member Becerra.
Madam Mayor, I move that the current council appoint the city council chair that's empty for interviewing one of the 19 people that ran. Invite them for an interview and we'll go from there. That is my motion, Madam.
I have a point of clarification.
At this point, Member Gomez, the chair has invited a motion and that's where we're at. So I don't know what clarification you would need on making a motion.
Well, because we got it.
Member Becerra, I believe I understood your motion, but would you mind repeating it?
Yes, ma'am. I move that the council interview and appoint a member from the 19 people that just finished running to fill the seat for the year and a half that will be left by the time we interview.
Thank you. The chair seconds.
I'll make a substitute motion.
Yes.
My motion is to allow the November 2022 election to have the people be able to vote, and it's not going to cost any money, and that's my motion.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Is there a second on the substitute?
Excuse me, can you clarify that, Councilwoman Gomez?
Yes, absolutely.
Mayor Pro Tem, you have not been recognized.
I'm so sorry. Forgive me.
No
Sorry.
worries at all. So Member Gomez, I'll go ahead and repeat it and you step in if I get it wrong. All right. So my understanding, Mayor Pro Tem, is that the substitute motion is to wait this process out and have a regular election during the 2022 cycle so as to not spend the city's money. Do I have that right, Member Gomez?
That's clear, yes.
Yes, thank you. All right, is there a second on the substitute? Hearing no second, the motion dies. We're back at the main motion. We have a first by Member Becerra, a second by the chair. We'll now take discussion on the pending motion, beginning with the maker of it, Member Becerra.
We have a duty to our citizens to fill this seat. I feel this would be the fairest way to fill it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Member Becerra. Member Gomez?
Yes. My comment on this is there's popular elections. Most government officials, seek American democracy. And sometimes when we do appointments or vote for appointments, it creates a dynasty and it creates very comfortableness for people in power to continue on something that the people have not chosen. So again, I'm not in support of this motion, and so don't count on my vote.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Mayor Pro Tem.
No.
No comments? All right, thank you. All right, so the chair just has a couple of comments. I think, the motion before us is a substantial change from when we last spoke on this topic. I think, I know when I've done this in the past, I've always wanted to open an application process up to anyone and everyone. But from the last time we met on this, it goes from the next top 5 to really being inclusive of all of those who weren't elected in the last cycle to apply to be appointed. So I think this is, I think it's a nice move. I think it's much more considerate of the overall process. I think it gives a much better feel for the voices of the people being heard, since those, we had 22 candidates in the last election just a few months ago. So this process would be inclusive of the other 19 individuals that were not elected. And I certainly think that this council is capable through a very rigorous and robust process of coming up with a candidate to fill the seat at virtually no cost that I can see, and make sure that we have a full complement of council members to make sure that we're moving forward the best that we can for the city of Victorville.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
if we really want to democratize the entire appointment process, why not open it up to any and everyone who meets the eligibility criteria of a candidate?
So, and that's, I'm fine with that, actually. So if Mayor Pro Tem would like to make us another substitute motion, the chair will entertain it.
I do not, but I am looking to, I do want to make a substitute motion. I move that we hold a special election to fill the vacancy on the Victorville City Council.
I'll go ahead and second that.
Thank you. We have on the substitute motion, we have Mayor Pro Tem Irving requesting a special election, seconded by Member Gomez. So with that said, I suppose we can go ahead and take comment on the substitute motion. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, I continue that I contend that I believe that the way we removed Councilmember Ramirez, that we owe it to the citizens of Victorville to show them justice and mercy, that they have an opportunity to replace the ousted council person. That's what I think. And also, I understand we're talking about cost, but in reality, there is really no cost when it comes to democracy. There really isn't cost when it comes to democracy. I think that this is the befitting way to do business because we want to be transparent. We don't want in any way, form, or fashion the politics of the council to influence who sits in that seat. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Member Gomez?
Yes, we ask a lot about concerns for what we would spend. So if November 2022 is not viable, but a substitute motion is to bring a special election, I don't see 3 votes for this, but for sure, I'm in the state of mind that people need to vote who they desire to be in this occupancy, in this space. And it's for them to realize that it's like a moot point. I don't see it going anywhere. You have 2 individuals one way and then potentially 1 or 2 going a different direction. But this is the best type of democracy that you can see unless we would have that 5th person. So the people, thank you for voicing your concerns.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Member Becerra, on the substitute comments?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just like to apologize to the citizens. You're about to hear and see what's now going to happen between now and November 2022. That's it.
Thank you, Member Becerra. So as to the substitute motion, I'm concerned, in my opinion, and I state it respectfully to all of my colleagues, my concern is that a false dichotomy has been created that as to the cost of an election and the cost of democracy. There are many other considerations to that. And as to justice and mercy, big fan of that as is Mayor Pro Tem, certainly. But that can be, what is justice in the sense that the law contemplates that the two approaches are just and are legal for the members of a community. One is special election, and the other, with equal footing in the eyes of the law, is appointment. So I don't think that appointment is a lack of justice, and special election is the full representation of justice, and certainly vice versa. With that said, Madam Clerk, will you take the discussion on the substitute motion is now closed. Madam Clerk, will you take the vote on that, please?
Councilmember Becerra,
No.
Councilmember Gomez,
On the substitute, yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
No.
It's a tie vote. That motion fails.
Thank you. We're now at the main motion, which is the one proposed by Member Becerra. Madam Clerk, will you kindly take the vote on that, please?
Councilmember Becerra,
Yes.
Councilmember Gomez,
On the main motion, no.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving,
No.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
That is a tie vote. That motion fails.
Thank you very much. All right, so again, we've, both motions have failed and we've not, council has not come to a decision as to a special election or a provisional appointment. Now going to move on to item 2, discussion and possible action regarding upcoming agenda items. Beginning with Member Gomez. Oh, excuse me, Member Gomez, I'm so sorry. So I do want to say this first because the chair at our last meeting, said that I was going to request an item at our next regular meeting to ask that we take up the matter of interpreting services. So I'm not prepared to do that here this evening, but just so the council knows that at the April 6th meeting, the chair certainly will make that request. Member Gomez, please go ahead.
I didn't understand. So you're saying that I can't bring to the table the option of having interpretation services? Because that's what I was bringing up to the table.
Oh, sure, you're free to. I think it would be discourteous to the chair since it's known that that was an item requested by the chair, that the item will be requested. So it's your prerogative, certainly.
Okay, yeah, that's my motion to take initiation no farther than 30 days from today to be agendized.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Is there a second on that?
I'm sorry, what do you want to have it? I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. Sorry.
Yes, please do. Yes.
I'm sorry.
No, please.
Can you clarify? I don't understand what she's asking for. To agendize what?
Translation. Yeah, I don't know if the chair wanted to clarify because she did last time, or she would like me to clarify.
Yeah, please go ahead, Member Gomez.
Yes, so for the last 5 years, I've been asking for translation services. And so today was the opportunity to do so again. And I so did respectfully within the next 30 days for it to be agendized.
For discussion and
Yeah,
possible action?
Action to appear within 30 days.
I second that.
All right, Madam Clerk, will you take the vote?
Madam Mayor, I have a question, point of order. I have a question.
I don't know if it's not a point of order, but certainly you may ask.
What language are we interpreting? From English to what language?
Well, I don't know what,
Anybody?
Sorry, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, thank
May I
you.
speak?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, may
No,
I speak?
actually, we'll let Member Gomez respond to that
Okay.
since this is her request.
Well, my motion was already set on the table. When I asked for translation services, I'm not asking for one category. So I don't know what.
Okay, it wasn't clear. So Member Becerra, go
What
ahead.
language?
Member
Again,
Becerra, Member Gomez didn't make it clear, so you're free at this point to vote.
No, I don't know what language, no.
Councilmember Gomez,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving,
I'm seconding for a discussion, and I would hope that you're speaking about American Sign Language and interpretive services that use the headphone. Yes.
Mayor Jones.
No, because the request isn't clear.
That is a tie vote. That motion failed.
Thank you. Member Gomez. All right, moving on. Member Becerra, any requests?
No, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
None at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And as the chair stated previously, the chair will bring up at the next meeting a request to put forward interpreting services to collect data on that and see if we can move forward. All right, with that said, there's no further business before us. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.